Cold War.
Chess?
Huh?
Why?
Because the kings can't attack each other.
You said that the other day.
I did.
This is broken.
You're broken.
Hey. Logan. My notebook is broken.
You want to play?
Yeah.
You can't play now. Otter will yell at us. We'll play if we get one time.
Okay.
Are you starting your notebook today?
Should say red.
Sadly.
She's done wait, can I have a green marker?
Light or dark?
I don't light. Actually, no, dark.
Okay, good. Because that's what
Here we go.
I was going to give you.
All right, let's learn about Bill Clinton.
Just like that.
That's part of the conversation.
No, Carter gave it to me.
So I'm going to show you a series of decisions, policies under Clinton's watch that you might consider to be liberal/conservative, American involvement in world affairs, liberator or oppressor. So it was under Clinton's watch that he established a new policy called Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And it had to do with gay people in the military. And the policy was basically captured pretty nicely by this political cartoon that ran in newspapers. And basically the idea was, what difference does it make if you're gay or straight? You are serving your country. Who cares if you're gay or straight? And so which one's the gay one? Of course, you don't know which one's the gay one, and that's the point. There have always been gay people serving in the military. It's just that let's acknowledge it now. Clinton did not feel like the country was ready to openly embrace that policy, and so this was a go-between. We won't ask you if you're gay, we the military. We will not ask you if you are gay or straight, and even if we ask you, don't tell us. Don't ask, don't tell. Now, if we happen to find out, you will be discharged. But the only way we'll find out is if we're walking down the street and we see you going into a gay bar. Okay, you're found out. Sorry? You're right. You're right. Okay, just to give you some perspective here, some context. The U.S. military has a long and rich history of being sort of the vanguard of giving rights. It was the U.S. military that desegregated right after World War II. The rest of the country caught up by 1954. Here's another example. Okay. By the way, Obama kind of finished this journey. So it was under Obama that you can be a flaming gay. Who cares? It does not matter. But the country was not there yet. It is sort of interesting, however, that our current president seems to have a different view. Let me say this about our current president, though. There's the president that talks, and then there's the president that does. Talking president has said no gay people in the military. We're not, but action president hasn't done anything about it. So we'll see. All right, let's not get ahead of ourselves. There's Mr. Clinton. That guy is a guy by the name of Brady. I never really talked about this, but there was an assassination attempt on Reagan's life when Reagan was president. That guy, by the way, is a free man. The man that shot Ronald Reagan and almost killed him is today a free man. And that is because he was able to convince a jury that he was insane. Now, he wasn't let go immediately. He served several years in prison and being observed. But today he is a free man, which I think is sort of an exemplary model of to the rest of the world. Like, look what we do with our people who try and kill presidents. We let them go after a while. Anyway, that assassin shot Reagan, nearly killed him, hit his heart, hit his chest several times, but it did not kill him, and shot this guy in the head. Same attack. By the way, it's on YouTube. You can watch it. It's not really gory. You can't really see anything, but it is kind of interesting. And in honor, he survived, right? Obviously, that's him with Bill Clinton years later. So he did survive. In honor of this man who survived, Clinton signed the Brady Bill. The Brady Bill is no longer the law of the land today, but for a while, no repeating guns. You could not own a gun that did this. Nope, single shot. That's it. It was called the Brady Bill. It was a very aggressive bill, and the country, so often happens, what happens in the country is after something traumatic, the country kind of binds itself together and says, yeah, let's do it for Johnny. Let's do it for Brady. A couple years later, a more conservative government removed that law. But for a while, there was some pretty aggressive gun control. I'm not advocating or dismissing it. I'm just saying that for a while, there was some pretty aggressive gun control.
This bill is just for like the public, right?
The public.
Okay.
And the military. No guns in the military.
No, I meant no.
That was a joke.
That was very nice.
I'm sorry. Who else would
I
it
meant
be?
like. Well, no, I just
For the
meant
public and
well, the military, but not no guns. I meant like repeating guns if the military.
no, this was not for the military. It's different rules. All right.
True.
Okay. So, it's really up to you if you think this is a positive policy, allowing gays in the military, kind of. It's really up to you if you believe gun control, limiting government, limiting the guns that are in your hands. Do you think that's a good idea? Because this would be liberal. This one is another one. What you're looking at is red is bad, blue is good. The difference between debt and deficit. Do we know? What is the difference between the debt and the deficit? So if I make $20 and spend $40 per week, if I make 20, spend 40, at the end of week one, make 20, spend 40. At the end of week one, what is my deficit? Negative 20, right? Negative 20. What's my debt? Negative 20. And now at the end of week two, what is my deficit? Negative 20. What's my debt?
Negative 40.
Negative 40. You get it? Debt is the total. Deficit is the difference between what you make and what you spend, right? If I collect 20, spend 40, the deficit is negative 20. It's a per unit measurement between what I collect and what I spend. But debt is total. This is the deficits. And it was during the Clinton years. The Clinton years are the blue. During Clinton's presidency, the U.S. government collected more than it spent, eliminating the deficit and positively impacting the national debt. Wouldn't that be considered a good thing? Cut spending, increase taxes on certain people. Now, again, you might think, well, that's bad. Increase taxes. That's automatically bad. Okay, fine. That's your conclusion. But he helped to eliminate deficits and attack the debt. Now, not to praise, he's a Democrat, and not to keep praise solely on him. The Congress was a Republican-controlled Congress. So what we had was divided government, right? The Republicans controlled the Congress and a Democratic president, and they worked together. What a crazy idea. Today we have divided government, and we've got a Republican president. We have a Republican-controlled Senate. We have a Democrat-controlled House. And they're not getting too much done. There's a lot of vitriol, a lot of anger toward the parties. Here we have what seems to be some cooperation. Will it last? That line graph there represents the level of crime during the Clinton years. And you'll see it's going down. The blue line represents property crime, stealing, arson, damage. The red line represents violent crime, and you can see it's a slight dip. In both cases, there's a decrease in crime, and that is because of They
made crime illegal.
Yeah. Yes, they made crime illegal. The basic idea was we need to have more cops. So something like the federal government gave states money to hire cops. And I think this is the correct number. You might want to investigate this if you believe that this is a valid argument. something like 100,000 cops nationwide hired. It's based on the belief is more cops, the less crime. The more cops, the less crime. Well, that's expensive. You have to pay that money. And so taxes need to go up in order to pay for that money. That's a liberal approach, but it appears to have worked. Okay.
Decrease the deficit or make the deficit go away.
That's right. Good for him. I wonder what could have happened to him. What could have happened to Clinton that derailed his presidency in a bit? Okay, all right. NAFTA stands for North American Free Trade Agreement. North American Free Trade Agreement. It created the world's largest tariff-free zone. No taxes between companies in Canada and Mexico and the US. No taxes. So if you are a company in Mexico, you get to sell your product to people in Wisconsin at the same level as somebody in Wisconsin gets to sell their product to Wisconsin. Now let's think that through. If you're a company like, say, Polaris, they make snowmobiles, and you have a factory in Janesville, Wisconsin, which they used to do, and you have to pay your American workers American wages, which they did. And then this treaty is created, creating a tariff-free zone among Canada, the U.S., and Mexico. And do we know anything about wages in Mexico? They're pretty low. What might you do? Move. And that's exactly what Polaris did. Polaris made snowmobiles in Janesville, and after this treaty, they moved to Mexico. They pay their workers much less, and they make wonderful snowmobiles. That's one thing Trump campaigned on as president. Trump ran on several things. One of them is this is the dumbest treaty, one of the dumbest treaties ever created, because it encouraged American businesses to move to other countries, whether it was Mexico or Canada, mostly Mexico. It's still an American-owned business, yes.
So, like, they took our jobs.
They took our jobs. They took our jobs. They took our jobs. They took our jobs.
Didn't want that. I just wanted to, like,
no. Oh. So anyway, I'm introducing to you a possible criticism. However, let's be careful there, because there is a retort, and it goes to something like this. Yeah, that company moved to Mexico and then hired Mexican workers. Now those Mexican workers have money. Am I interrupting? Yeah, those Mexican workers now have money, and you know what they're going to do with that money? Buy things like American things.
Like snowmobiles.
So it actually, by helping Mexico, the U.S. was helping itself. The metaphor is a rising tide raises all boats. Huh? Okay. This is globalization. That's exactly right. Globalization.
Excuse the interruption.
No. Unexcused.
Thank you.
Now let's set the record straight on why Clinton was impeached. Let me back up. Was Clinton impeached?
No. He resigned.
How many of you say he was never impeached? Almost impeached, but was not impeached. Yes, he was. He was impeached.
I thought we've never had a president.
He was impeached. In our history, we've had two presidents impeached. One of them was Bill Clinton. The other one was the guy after Lincoln. No, Obama was not impeached. So this is what impeached simply means charged with a crime. There was a trial. He was found not guilty. Okay, what was he found? What was he accused of? Careful. I don't mean careful as in it's a touchy subject. I mean, are you sure?
Was it the taxes?
Does anyone know what Clinton was accused of?
Was it taxes?
No. That's right. Very good, Jack. You identified the point. cheating on your wife. Immoral? Fine. But not illegal.
Otto, what's that supposed to mean?
It's immoral, but not illegal.
But you said fine after immoral.
I don't mean fine as in do it.
I think your wife should sit on a class.
Clinton was not charged with having an affair. It's not illegal. It might violate the rules of your church or something, but it is not illegal. So what? Well, then what did he do? No. Okay. What he did was some senators asked him about it, about the affair. And he said, I didn't do it. And he was under oath.
He lied.
He was subpoenaed before Congress, and they asked him about the affair, and he said, it's not true. And now they got him.
How did they know it was true?
Hillary?
Physical evidence and testimony. I'll leave it at that. Here's his defense, though.
Wait, can you start? Wait, can you?
Let's pretend you are a Jewish family, and it is 1938, and you live in Germany, and the doorbell rings, and it is a couple Nazis, and they said, "Say, listen, we're trying to find out where all the Jews live. Are you a Jew?" Now, let's say you are, and you say no. Did you just lie?
Not under oath.
Okay, fine. Did you lie though?
Yeah.
Is there a however here though?
No.
Nope. I lied. Yep.
But they'd never know.
They did know. They had records.
How do you have a record of?
They would go to the synagogues. They knew exactly who the Jews were in any village.
So they knew.
Yeah, they knew.
But they went to the house asking.
So they wanted them
Can
to
you just
lie?
work with me?
Like they didn't know.
They wanted them to lie. That's why they.
No, I'm just creating a hypothetical. Are you lying?
Yeah.
If your wife shows up with a new shirt, future husbands, and says, "What do you think of my new shirt?" and you think she looks like a clown, but you say, "You look beautiful." Are you lying?
You're expanding the truth.
How about this one?
Then
You're all going to have children someday. Your 4-year-old comes up to you and says, I heard Santa wasn't real. Mom, is Santa real?
No.
Are you lying when you say Santa's real? In all three of those things, there's something deeper.
You're protecting.
You love your wife. You want your child to behave. Clinton's defense, the Jewish defense, it's none of your business. You don't have the right to ask me if I were having an affair. It's a private issue. It's none of your business. That was his defense. Now you might think, oh, that's a pretty good defense. Or you might think, sorry, you were under oath. You needed to tell the truth, period.
Well, yeah.
But that's what his defense was.
Except his defense doesn't work when he's under oath.
Fine.
Was there an audience that was?
No, this was a sequestered interview.
And he's still under oath.
Yes.
That's
Okay, fine.
Take my mom to a courtroom.
So then,
See you're under oath. It's Santa real.
he said, no. Is that a high crime? Because the Constitution says that you can remove a president for a high crime or misdemeanor. Is lying under oath about an affair serious enough that removal is the proper course of action?
No.
That's where many people said, I believe you lied, but we don't need to remove him from office. When you're caught jaywalking, they don't execute you. Okay? Unless you're in China. That's why he remained in office. Because it didn't seem like the punishment fit the crime.
Wait, what does impeach mean?
So he wasn't
Charged
impeached?
with a crime. Yes, he was impeached. He was not removed.
Okay.
Impeached means charged.
I mean, but that just says something about his priorities. He held keeping his personal relationship at a higher point than obeying government rules.
Maybe. Or maybe he believed that he was doing a lot of good and that had he admitted it, he might have lost the faith of the American people, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but maybe you're right. Yeah, maybe you're right. Okay. These are things that happened under Clinton's watch. This is a building about the size of this school. It housed a cult in Waco, Texas. Some of you have seen this before in sociology. We looked at this. In World of Conflict, we looked at this. They were called the Branch Davidians. They had some weird views. The guy that was the leader believed he was the second coming of Jesus and all this stuff. And, you know, this is America. You have the right to be weird here, which many of you exercise that right every day. Anyway, there's nothing illegal about being weird, but there were two problems with what was going on here. One, they may have had guns stored away illegally, violating the Brady bill that I just showed you. Okay, so maybe they were breaking the law. And then two, it was quite possible that some inappropriate sexual behavior was going on between adults and children. Like some of that radical guy's wives were also his daughters. Right? So, okay, fine. So here comes a branch of the FBI to raid the building and confiscate illegal weaponry. And that's when this happened. They probably committed mass suicide. They killed 3 of the FBI agents that were approaching. And that's where I think the American public sort of turned against them. Most of the public was sort of like, well, why don't you just leave them alone? I mean, they're weird, but... And then when the FBI raided and then 3 of the agents were shot, that's when the public was like, yeah, okay, we're no longer with you anymore. Just a lesson in life, by the way. When the cop does something wrong to you, don't shoot them. Record them with your phone. Now the jury's on your side. If you shoot them, jury's not on your side anymore. Lesson in life. Don't shoot cops.
No, shoot.
Yeah, shoot. Okay. I remember seeing this. I was a grad student, and I remember seeing this, and just the reaction, which was kind of interesting. And I'm gonna show this to you in a second. WTC means World Trade Center. In 1993, 8 years before 9/11,
The garage.
there was an attack on the same building by the same group. 1993. They blew up the basement of one of the buildings, believing that if you weaken the bottom, the top will fall over, and they wanted it to fall into the other building like a domino. And what's kind of interesting is that they made a mistake. They put the bomb in the middle of the building. Any of you familiar with these things called lobsters? Lobsters? Okay.
No.
You're not?
Like the animal?
The animals called lobsters, yes. Or crabs.
Got it.
The difference between this building and most buildings is the same difference between you and a lobster. Very good. Your strength the reason you are the shape you are is because of your skeleton, which is inside you. The soft, mushy stuff, or for me, the rock hard stuff, is on the outside. Okay? But the World Trade Center, the strength is on the outside. The steel girders are on the outside. The inside is the soft, mushy stuff. This attack, they bombed the soft, mushy inside, so the building didn't topple because they did not hurt the strong structure, which was on the outside. This is the reason why 8 years later, they understood you want those things to go down, you have to attack the outside.
From the top.
No, not necessarily from the top. You just have to attack the outside, the exoskeleton, and that's why they came up with the plan they did. This happened under Clinton's watch. What I'm trying to tell you is that before 9/11, there were events from the same group targeting the same country using the same symbol, the World Trade Center. And yet we still didn't see what was going on. The third major event was this, right? A lot of buildings getting destroyed here. This is in Oklahoma City. This is the Oklahoma City bombing. The group that did this watched this on their TVs. We know that because of the trial. They caught these guys. And in the trial, They explained why they did this. And why they did this was because they saw that. Let's go back to that. I told you I watched it live. And I told you that my sympathies lay with the FBI. 3 of them got shot. That's where my opinion switched from, well, they're kind of weird, to they are criminals. They need to be treated as criminals. The people that did this watched this, and their reaction was, why is the government bothering these weird people? Leave them alone. I'm going to punish the federal government for not leaving these people alone and exercising their Second Amendment right to own a weapon and exercising their First Amendment right to freedom of religion. I'm going to punish the federal government. I think I'll blow up a federal government building in Oklahoma City. That's what he did. This guy's name was Timothy McVeigh. He's dead now. There's a daycare center on the second row. 122-ish people killed, something like that, ish. Okay. This is all on Clinton's watch. Okay. Does Clinton deserve blame? Is this Clinton's fault that the FBI raided this building? Is this Clinton's fault that under his watch this happened? Is this Clinton's fault? Is it Bush's fault that 9/11 happened under his watch? Does the president deserve blame when things don't go well? And conversely, does the president deserve praise when things go great? Right? That's a difficult question to answer. Any questions on any one of these? All under Clinton's watch. Let's continue with Clinton foreign policy. So once again, I think I'm inviting you to think about, this is sort of an America in the world sort of thing. Very much so.
Wait, what you just showed us was America in the world.
Well,
I
mean,
that's like what
I'm not sure how this fits in. This, you might consider this one to be a liberator oppressor. The question is, in the battle between keeping Americans safe and keeping you free, should the U.S. government be able to violate your First Amendment and Second Amendment rights sometimes? Because that's what this is. This was a violation of First Amendment, freedom of religion, Second Amendment, freedom to bear arms. But maybe sometimes it's necessary to do so. The Brady Bill is a violation of the Second Amendment. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And some people say, good, we need it. Question?
I was just going to say, wow, could people sympathize with them if they had a legal weapon?
They would argue that this law should never have been in existence in the first place. How's that? Okay. So the first thing we're looking at is Somalia. I wish I had a map here. I don't. Picture Africa, the extreme northeast corner of Africa. That country right there is Somalia. Very, very poor country. Well, okay, by Egypt. Yeah. It's right there. All right, it's the Horn of Africa. Why is Jack here? Remember now, there's no more Soviet Union. They lost. The U.S. is the unquestioned leader of Earth. And the UN is being given authority to deal with worldwide problems. And so the UN has a problem in Somalia. Somalia is falling apart as a country. There are these local warlords that engage in tribal behavior, violence. So the UN comes to the U.S. and says, hey, U.S., there's this one guy in Somalia. Can you get him for us? Will you be our attack dog? Right? Picture the UN as the owner, and the U.S. is that bulldog. Whoa, boy. Whoa, boy. Okay, go get him, Tex. Huh?
Yes.
Hi, as in I didn't hear you. We'll go with it. All right. How many of you ever heard of Black Hawk Down? Either the movie or the book. The movie's pretty good. The book is excellent. It's a true story of what happened. So here come the Americans to get this one guy. He's a warlord in Somalia. He seems to be beyond the ability of anyone to arrest him because he's inside Somalia. Aha, but the Cold War is over. There is nobody to frown upon American actions. So let's go get him. No one's here to stop us. The Russians aren't going to say, you can't do that because, yeah. And it didn't go well. It did not go well. 18 Americans killed when one of the Black Hawk helicopters was shot down by the Somalis. And so there's once again this struggle. Is it worth American lives to make Somalia safer? Now, what we seem to have is a current president who's concluded, no, we America, that's what matters. And so we should lessen our direct impact in foreign countries. Whereas George Bush Jr. was the one who sent soldiers to Afghanistan and Iraq in the first place, which we're going to get to in a bit. Okay. So conclude, if you're writing about America and the world, is this a good thing? It was the United States that brokered a peace treaty called the Good Friday Peace Accords. This is hundreds of years old, and I don't want to bore you too much, but this white thing here, that's a thing called Britain. And this green thing here, that's a thing called Ireland. Ireland. Mm-hmm. But then there's this other thing called Ireland. This is Ireland, the island of Ireland. But then there's also this nation called Ireland, which is located on the island of Ireland. How many of you are confused? Okay. Well, it's sort of like Australia. Okay. Here's the thing. You see this white chunk, which is on the island of Ireland? That's Britain. It's part of Britain, but it's part of Ireland, the island. It's part of the island of Ireland, but it's part of the nation Britain. It is not part of Ireland, the nation. Ah! About half of the people living in this white area right here wanted it to become green. Right? They wanted to secede and join their fellow Irish in the nation of Ireland. About half of the people in white did not. They wanted to remain part of Britain. And this has something to do with religion. The Irish half that wanted to join with Ireland were Catholic, just like the rest of Ireland. The half of Northern Ireland that did not were Protestant, like most people in the white area, right? So it's religious-based, it's nationality-based, and they fought each other. This was actually a violent conflict. There was even a terrorist group. It's one of the most famous terrorist groups in human history, the IRA, the Irish Republican Army. You're right. They sort of wrote the book. Yeah, you're right. Well, it was the United States that brought both sides to the table and, in essence, created the situation that exists today, and that is that there's still this thing called Britain. There's still this thing called Ireland, the nation. And then this white thing is sort of on its own. It's part of neither, kind of. Technically, it's still part of Britain, but only technically.
Make it part of neither one.
It's sort of, it's semi-autonomous. It's sort of like tribal areas inside Wisconsin. Are they part of the U.S.? Well, kind of. And yet they're also sort of on their own. They have their own rules.
You talking about Northern Michigan?
No, I'm talking about tribal areas.
Oh.
Northern Michigan's part of Michigan.
But it's like that
Nope,
situation.
it's just part of Michigan.
But it's like that situation.
No. Well, I mean, it's part of the situation in that there's some water between it.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Okay. All right.
Geography.
A couple other things here. If you'll notice, I'm trying to cover a little bit more now because I don't know if you realize this, but you have a test next week. The third thing we're looking at on this slide, which is America in the world, is how to deal with the fragmenting of a nation. When I was your age, this was one color. It was Yugoslavia. At the end of the Cold War, nations fall apart, right? The Soviet Union fell apart. Yugoslavia fell apart.
This is still stuff that happened while Clinton.
This is all under Clinton's watch. This is mid-1990s. Look how many nations this one nation became. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and today this one's a separate one too. So Montenegro is in there. So six different nations, and I'll add this and counting. What we seem to have after the Cold War is a breaking up of nations. That because the US and the Soviets aren't there to sort of dictate policy, no one's here to stop us from seceding. No one's here to stop us. So what we had was this green country, it's called Bosnia and Herzegovina, and then this yellow country, it's called Croatia, seceding from Yugoslavia. And just like Lincoln didn't let him go, Yugoslavia didn't let him go. The part of Yugoslavia that didn't want him to let him go was called Serbia. They didn't let him go, so now we have a war. These two are trying to become independent countries. The pink is trying to say, nope, you're not going anywhere, just like Lincoln. As a matter of fact, when the United States criticized the pink country, you know what they said right back to us? What the heck? You didn't. You didn't let your states secede. Why are you forcing us to let these states secede? It's not quite the same, but we don't want to get too deep into it. So NATO started bombing Serbia to let him go. To let him go. And it brought Serbia to the negotiating table. And in 1995, the leader of Serbia, the leader of Bosnia, and the leader of Croatia were flown to Dayton, Ohio. Yes, Dayton, Ohio, where they signed the Dayton Peace Accords. It is the law of the land even today. Basically, American soldiers today are on the black lines. It's like you standing between your mom standing between you and your brother. Now you can't fight each other, because if you do, you might kill an American. If you kill an American, here we go.
Bosnia and Serbia still like each other here. They've been like closely connected people for centuries.
Well, I'd say this. I could overlay another map here showing the ethnic backgrounds of these people, and it becomes much more mixed. There are Serbians who live in Bosnia, and there are Bosnians who live in Serbia. It becomes too complex for necessarily understanding this. Hey, I promise we're almost done. Stick with me for a few more minutes here. This was an American action. This was a NATO action, but the question started popping up at the end of Cold War. NATO, why? What's NATO's point? Soviet Union's done. There is no communism anymore. Why does NATO exist? What's its purpose? And I would argue that for about 10 years, there were serious considerations about ending NATO. And then something happened. Did you know that there's a part in the NATO Constitution that says if any nation in NATO is ever attacked, all the other nations in NATO will come to the rescue of that nation? And it has been used. NATO was created 1948-ish, something like that. So it's 2019, 58, 68, 78, 88, 98, 2008, 2018. NATO is about 71 years old. And in 71 years, that part has been used once. One time. There was a NATO nation attacked, and everyone else came to the rescue. And how about when I tell you who was the victim? It wouldn't be who you think. You would think it would be some Central European country that was attacked by Russia. Nope. And I'm fairly certain that everyone in here knows what I'm talking about. It's just kind of amazing that the one NATO nation that was attacked was the nation that was attacked. It wouldn't be who you think. And that all the other nations came to our rescue. Thanks, small NATO members, for helping the big boy in the attack. Okay? This is the last thing, and then I'm done. Clinton was president for 8 years, and then he's got to step down. Al Gore runs for the Democrats, and George Bush Jr. runs for the Republicans. And I just want you to, let's take a look at each map here because it's fascinating stuff. Let's start with the popular vote. I know it's kind of fuzzy here. I apologize. But Team Red, 47.9%. Team Blue, 48.4%. Pretty close. Notice nobody won a majority. Because of some white thing here. Electoral vote. I mean, that line's straight down the middle, isn't it? Basically, it's straight down the middle. American vote. If you were to just look, you'd say, well, the red guy won. He won all this land. But remember, nobody lives in Wyoming. It's just cutouts of people. If you were to walk up, you'd push them over and they'd fall because they're not real. No one, more people live in this spot right there, that spot right there, than the entire map. I don't know. Then that whole part of the Western United States. So you can't look at a map and say, well, obviously the red guy won. No, because people are concentrated. Cities are where people live up, right? They live in buildings. Whereas in Montana, there are no buildings. Everyone lives on a ranch with like 800 acres of sheep and cows and stuff. I'm exaggerating, of course. Okay. Any questions?
Can you go back to?
Are you trying to say we all live in buildings?
Well, Wisconsin's kind of
Both.
it's a weird state. Yeah. This is the one around. Yeah, there we go. By the way, the red guy did win. He came down to Florida. I'll talk about that tomorrow.
That's not red. It's brown.
You think that's brown?
It's burnt orange.
It's like
It's not red at all.
it's some sort of weird orange color.
Awesome. Okay. You have 10 minutes. You can shut her down for today or whatever you want to do.
Should I never hear this before? Yeah.